Amazing. Well, absolute welcome to our viewers. Massive welcome to you, Ash. Thank you so much for joining us here. It's great to have you with us. It's great. I'm really looking forward to hearing your testimony of how you've been changed by Christ. So what we'll do is I'll just kind of let you share your testimony. I'll interject with some questions here and there. But I think obviously it'd be a really good thing for all of our viewers at home watching, just to find out a little bit maybe about who you are, what you're doing at the moment, maybe where you're living, just some interesting facts about yourself. So give it to us.
Right, okay. I'll give you some facts and I'll let you decide whether they're interesting or not. So currently I am based in Cwmbran. It's an area in South Wales. I'm a trainee church minister as part of the Healing Movement. As part of that, I'm working as a youth pastor, so we've just started up a brand new youth group in our local area. I also work in one of the church plants in another part of South Wales, and I have the privilege of working at a drugs recovery centre. So very busy, all over the place, involved in lots of different types of ministry, but really loving life at the moment. Yeah, it's good, really good.
Oh, amazing. That's absolutely quality, mate. That does sound like you are doing a heck of a lot of work at the moment.
Yes. Yes.
No, that's really good. It doesn't sound though like you've always been from Cwmbran. Whereabouts were you originally born?
Well, compared to the accent and where I was born, they're two different places as well. So I was born in a place called Coventry. So my accent would be very different if I was born there. But I grew up in a place called Stourbridge. It's known as the Black Country. It's on the west side of Birmingham.
Love it. Well, that's awesome. Thank you, mate. It's good to have you with us. Obviously, we are looking this week at being changed by Christ and how Jesus kind of shapes and changes us. And mate, obviously, I know a little bit of your testimony and how God has done that, and it's absolutely incredible. So why don't you just perhaps share a little bit of where you were at, what you were doing, perhaps kind of some of your thoughts and your background, especially our viewers' age from like 11 to 16. What was your like teenage years like?
Oh wow, being a teenager is tough, man. It's crazy. I'm sure as that all of our viewers know, being a teenager is not easy. So as I've already said, I was sort of born in Coventry, just a typical lad, you know, grew up in a normal household, or what I thought was normal at the time. So there was mum and nan and little sister. I didn't have a dad, but I never had one, so I never knew what I was missing, kind of thing. And I suppose when I was about the age of 10, my mum met my now stepdad, and they hit it off. My mum found love. But when you're a kid and at a young age, it's hard sometimes to understand the world around you. And I think sometimes it's only, I don't want to be patronised, but when you get a little bit older and you look back and think, actually, you know what, I could have acted differently. So I suppose when I was about 10, 11, there's this new man in the house. And my mum and my dad, my now stepdad, they decided to move from Coventry to Stourbridge. I mean, it's only an hour away, but the accent's massively different. And when you're at that age, you're trying to fit in, you're trying to find your place in this world.
Yeah.
And so I found myself moving to a completely different area. I left all my friends behind, all my connections, the life that I knew. And I found myself in a brand new school. And everyone had this funny accent, which now I have. And so I'm trying to fit in, I'm trying to find my place in the world. I'm 11 years old and I'm in year 7. And I'm confused and I'm upset really, and I don't really feel like I fit. And so really what you do when you're that kind of a kid, you kind of gravitate towards those kind of kids, and there's other kids that were hurting, other kids that were upset. I mean, we live in a broken world. It's a messed up world, it really is. And so I began to hang around with these kids, you know, Jack the lad. Maybe you might say that I was led astray, but I think I was probably the one doing a lot of the leading, if I'm honest. And so it starts, you know, you're playing up at school because you get a bit of attention, don't you? Because everyone, oh, he's the class clown, and he's not scared of the teachers, and you get a bit of a reputation, and you find people are impressed by you. And then as you're getting a bit older, you're smoking between lunch breaks and stuff like that, having a fag behind the bike sheds, which then becomes a spliff, a roll of cannabis. And so like by the time I'm 13, you know, I'm smoking cannabis regularly. I go on the weekends and I'm drinking, that sort of thing, regularly getting suspended from school for just playing up, really. I was just a broken kid that was really acting out quite bad, really.
Wow.
But yeah, I suppose from there, I think my life was set on a trajectory, really. So by the time I'm 16, you know, I've been expelled from school. Things have got that bad, you know, regular suspensions, regularly not fitting in. So by the time I'm 16, I'm expelled from school. I've been done by that point for burglary, arson, criminal damage, theft, handling stolen goods. So the arson was the rival school that we used to fight with. So the two schools used to be in conflict. Well, I went to their school and set their school on fire, which is a bit stupid, really, because it meant that they all had time off in school. And it wasn't long before I got arrested, and then that was it, really, branded as a criminal.
Wow.
From that point, like job prospects and life prospects, they start to diminish a little bit. You know, I was a broken, angry kid, and if anyone's listening to this and they are in that place where they're hurting and they're broken, I would encourage you, like life changes, as you're going to hear from my story. Wow. And I would encourage you to limit the amount of damage you're doing to your own life. When I was in that place, I was angry, frustrated, broken, and so I acted up. I played up, trying to express my brokenness. But what I did was I just hurt myself more and more. And so 16, expelled from school, I'm starting to then sell drugs. I had a very growing drug habit, smoking cannabis, taking pills, sniffing coke, all kinds of drugs. Whatever was coming through, I'd take them because I wasn't scared. You know, I needed to feel something. I needed a buzz. I needed a high. I was the tough guy. I wanted to be a gangster because that gave me reputation. It gave me status. It gave me respect. It was almost like that's where I found my place in this world. And so I'd go to over the next couple of years. By the time I'm 19, I'm selling most drugs in most of the nightclubs in my local area. You go to a house party and the room comes alive because you've bought the drugs, you've bought the party. And you know, you think the whole world's interested in you, but they're not. They're interested in what you can provide. Wow. You know, I was the idiot that was caught up in that world, funding my drug habit, really. And so by the time I'm 19, I started to get noticed by some real thugs, you know, true gangsters. And these guys were buying from the likes of the Albanian mafia and selling to Hell's Angels. These were serious gangsters. I was a kid, a Jack the Lad, getting high, enjoying life. And I'm starting to get noticed by these guys. You can tell I'm quite tall, I'm ginger, I've got big ears. I kind of stand out anyway. And now I've got a reputation as a fighter, as a bit of a Jack the Lad and getting into trouble. And so I started selling drugs for these guys. They were buying 1 or 2 kilos of cocaine a week. So a kilo of cocaine costs between 48 and 52,000 pounds. Obviously, with that kind of life comes high amounts of money, weapons, guns, drugs, fighting, violence, and crime. And so that was the life I kind of found myself pulled into. And so let me just give you a couple of little stories just to illustrate that kind of life. One time, these guys from the Albanian mafia, they've come to my home and they're trying to sell these drugs. And we paid them £50,000, okay? So they came to my house. Normally they'd go to a safe house or a safe place or a neutral ground, but everywhere was being watched. The police were at this time closing in on us. And so we did this deal in my living room. I'll be honest, I was only interested in the drugs. My job that day was to test the coke and rub it around your gums and have a sniff, kind of the stuff you see on films. We paid them the multiple thousands of pounds and they left. And my friend came to me afterwards. He said, "Did you see that guy sitting in the corner of the room?" Kind of a bit like how I am now, just kind of sat there, real staunch look on his face, a rough looking guy. And my mate said that he saw hanging under his jacket the butt end of a MAC-10 machine gun. So a MAC-10 machine gun, for those COD fans out there, is a semi-automatic weapon. You sort of pull the trigger, spray the room, everyone's dead. His job that day would have been, if we tried to take from them what was theirs, he'd have killed us, took the drugs and the money and the left. Now, for a lot of your viewers, for those growing up in church, this might sound shocking, but I'll be honest, this thing's happening regularly. You know, we was on the west side of Birmingham, but this will be happening in Skegness. This will be happening in Blackpool. This will be happening in Manchester, London, all around the country, all around the nation. This thing's happening on a regular basis. It's the promise of fast cash. It's the promise of a bit of status and a bit of reputation. But drugs always get a hold of you. And I was a mess. It tore my life apart, tore my family apart. I damaged the lives of everybody that was in my path. And so before long, as you can imagine, I ended up in prison. Best place for me is exactly what I deserved. I was a scumbag, a waste of space. Everyone had tried to help me and I threw it back in their face over and over again. And so, you know, I find myself in prison, really.
Wow, mate, that's what a flipping story. That's absolutely like mind-blowing. I mean, my own life, miles away from, I guess, my own experiences and story, but wow, what a testimony, what an experience. So just, I mean, yesterday we were talking a little bit about how people influence us or how we influence other people. Just briefly, would you say kind of growing up, you were the main influencer of other people, or would you say that you were heavily influenced by those around you?
Yeah, I think at first I was easily influenced and then I became an influencer. Okay. So when you're in an area or in a people group that you don't feel part of, you need to find acceptance. And so you're influenced by what they do. Also, the guy who's taking the mick out of you, how do you win his respect? By taking the mick out of somebody else. You mimic their behavior. Somebody goes for a fag between lectures and they kind of brush the teacher off and challenges them. Everybody else laughs. So you mimic them, you copy. However, when you're copying other people, their DNA or their identity kind of rubs off on you and you're not being the authentic version of yourself. And so for years, I became this new identity. this angry, violent, aggressive individual, because that way no one could hurt me. No one could get close enough to me to hurt me, so I could brush them off. And I you know, in the end, it destroys you as a person. But yeah, when you're a kid, like, you need to, I mean, Facebook, like, it wasn't around as much when I can't, like, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, they're constantly looking for acceptance, constantly looking for gratification. I feel for those of you that are watching this, living in the world that you live in right now, it's a tough environment. It is.
Yeah, mate, that's incredible. Obviously, it's not all kind of violence, drugs, and gangs. No. You're in a completely different place now, absolutely transformed. So just briefly, mate, in a couple of minutes, just explain to us kind of your journey through prison, and then how you've landed now, and what difference Christ has made in your life now.
Cool. Okay, so I'm in prison, Jack the lad, smuggling drugs into prison, doing gangs, doing the kind of prison life that you do. And one day a prisoner came to me and said, look, mate, I think you need God. He was brave enough in that prison to step out and say, I think you need God. And something troubled me. Something within just disturbed me. A couple of days later, I'm walking down the corridor and there's a sign-up sheet on the wall for chapel. You sign your name up, go to chapel on a Sunday, and that's basically it. And I felt such a draw, such a pull, something just tugging at me to go close to this sign. In the end, I had this argument with myself and I signed up. And the moment I signed up, a sense of peace hit me that I'd never experienced in all my life. Suddenly, the acceptance that I've been looking for all this time, that I was trying to find through my reputation, my status, was suddenly given to me just like that. I encountered radical love in that prison. Now, after that, there's a whole load of craziness that we could go into, but just long story short, I come out of prison and my life radically changed. I meet with God. God's real. He's tangible. He's physical. My mind's trying to constantly catch up. I'm reading the Bible, learning how to pray, getting into trouble, and this whole season of just chaos just kicks off around me until I came to church and I heard the gospel preached in the power of the Holy Spirit, and I heard what Jesus done for me, and bam, that was it. The drugs were broken. The power of addiction was destroyed, and I was completely set free. So from that moment now, I've been to church. I've been a youth pastor in a church for a little while. Then I went to Bible college, and I was in your class with you, mate. We was in the same class at Bible college. So I've done 3 years at university, and I've got a degree, something that never would have been possible in a million years before. I'm married to a beautiful woman who's like out of my league. She's gorgeous. She really looks after me. And that's another point. Just for you guys that are, listening to this, purity, okay, is not an attractive thing in our day and age, but it's beautiful. Before, women for me was something for the weekend. But when I met my wife, under Christian principles, we thought we're going to wait until we're married. And we did. We didn't have sex till we was married, and we've got a beautiful marriage now because of that. It's had its ups and it's had its downs. But the intimacy we have now because of that is phenomenal. So now I'm in this church doing what I said I was doing at the beginning, working in drugs rehabilitation, working in youth groups. And life's not always easy, but it's well worth it with Jesus, definitely.
Mate, that's absolutely incredible. We may have gone over a little bit, but I think this is a really important question. To any of our watchers right now who are potentially going down that route that you are going down at their age, or they're not in the best place right now, what's the biggest piece of advice that you'd give to them?
Wow, biggest piece. We need community. We need friends. That's a massive thing about the human. It's not good for man to be alone, the Bible says. Find a youth community. That's what I massively advise. Find a youth community, find some brothers and sisters in Christ, your own age, that you can share life with, and open up to your pastor at home, at the church. Talk to your youth minister. Allow them to pray with you. Go on this journey of discovering who Jesus is. That's the biggest piece of advice I'd give you. Just turn your back on the fools. When I was in prison, they didn't care about me. They weren't interested in me. That status, that reputation, that source of income, it was gone. And I was left broken with my drug addiction. My life was a mess. They're only there when things are good. So find people that are with you no matter what. And you'll find that in church.
That's amazing, mate. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing that testimony. I know elsewhere you've done longer testimonies here and there, but thank you guys as well for just tuning in and watching this. I hope that you've been challenged. Maybe you got a couple of questions tonight as we kind of discuss and chat some of these through. It's a great opportunity to ask some of those questions. It's a great opportunity to perhaps open up where you hadn't opened up before. But Ash, it's been a real pleasure just over these couple of 10 minutes just to join with you and hear your testimony, hear your story. So thank you so much for joining us, and God bless.
Thank you all. Bless you.